Hello and welcome back to Not Another Movie Podcast. I am Sean Pierce.
And I am Sean Kelly.
And how has your first week of school holidays been?
God, it's just been the best week. I haven't done any work, which is pushed a little bit back to next week, but that's fine. I've got enough time to do it. I've just had such a good time. I spent all day today with my daughter just hanging out. Went and saw a great movie this week, which we'll talk about later on. I discovered rogues in World of Warcraft are really fun to play. I never played one before. So it's just all come up, Sean, this week.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad one of us is having a good week. I've come to the realization that I am definitely not a house dad. I'll definitely be a house dad once both of them are in school. But for the meantime, I'm
because they're going to be at school.
Dad. Yeah, that's right. Because then you got a good 6 hours to yourself. Now I'm lucky to get a good 6 minutes to myself, to be honest.
You know what? Yeah, it's tough. But why? What's happened?
Oh no, they're good boys. But just it's the parent guilt to try and make sure they're doing something other than just sitting there watching either their devices or the TV. So
get rid of that, man.
It's always trying to work something out for them is probably the hardest part. And then as soon as they'll be quiet, as soon as I sit down to do something, oh, Dad, look at this. Dad, can I have this? Dad, can I have that? They've just got this ability, this sixth sense, that as soon as I'm doing something, as soon as I'm busy, is the time that they want to ask me 1,000 questions.
Do you think about your own relationship with your dad when you were that age at these times?
I used to draw a lot, so I was pretty easy.
Okay.
I'd just be happy to sit there with some pencils and paper and just draw for as long as I could. Yeah. So, as I said, I don't think I was that thing, but he might have a different story. He might say I was a pain in the ass as well.
I'll have to get him on the show.
Yeah. Well, I know he used to work a lot, so he was more than happy to come home at 6 o'clock when we were getting ready to go to bed. So I don't think there was any complaints from him. My mother on another story, who knows?
Yeah, I can imagine
what stories she will share. But as I said, I'm glad one of us is having a good time.
So you're looking forward to the kids going back to school, huh?
One more week to go. Just one more week.
That's right. Well, look, as we said, a couple of things have made up for it this week, and we could talk about those in a little bit.
Yes. Well, do you want to kick off with the sad news this week before we go into
the news? And it's only just dropped today, and it's really sad, even though she wasn't really a public figure. But Stan Lee, who we much loved at the show and much loved of pretty much anyone who enjoys pop culture these days, Stan Lee's wife Joan has died at 93. They were married for 60-odd years, which is pretty amazing. And they released it. Well, they didn't release this quote, but Stan Lee had talked about his wife before, and this quote was just amazing. So I'm going to read it out. It's a sad way to start the show, but this is a lovely quote. I'm not going to try and do a Stan Lee voice because that would be insensitive, but you can imagine it in his voice because he's got such a distinctive voice. When I was young, there was one girl I drew, one body and face and hair. It was my idea of what a girl should be. Now, I should say, for those who don't know who Stan Lee is, big comic book creator, created Spider-Man, a whole bunch of them, which we'll talk about in a minute. So yeah, he drew a lot as a kid as well. I drew the perfect woman, and when I got out of the army, a cousin of mine, knew a model, a hat model at a place called Leyden Hats, and she said, "Stan, there's this really pretty girl named Betty. I think you'd like her. She might like you. Why don't you go over and ask her to lunch?" So I went up to this place. Betty didn't answer the door, but Joan answered, and she was the head model. I took one look at her, and I thought, this is the girl I'd been drawing all my life. And then I heard the English accent, and I'm a nut for English accents. She said, "May I help you?" And I took a look at her, and I think I said something crazy like, "I love you." I don't remember exactly, but anyway, I took her to lunch. I never met Betty, the other girl. I think I proposed to Joan at lunch, which is just really lovely. Like, for such a bigger-than-life kind of guy, you can just imagine that his love life would have matched him in that stratosphere. So we're feeling for him at this time. And I hope, as is common in these kinds of situations, that Stan stays healthy for some time yet.
Yeah, but we don't want to have a Carrie Fisher situation where the mother passes a week later. So let's hope Stan is around for much longer. So
yeah, exactly.
Rest in peace to his wife Joan.
Yeah. All right. On that note, let's move on to some of the positive news.
Yeah, the positive news this week is that Spider-Man: Homecoming came out, and
yes,
there was a
And
reason why we're
kind of-
excited for this, and it was fucking brilliant.
It's fitting given that Stalin created the character, but I don't know how it's fitting, but it is coincidental. Damn it! So we'll do our spoiler-free review now, and then spoilers later on the show.
Yes. So
Cool.
as usual, we haven't spoken to each other
No.
since we've seen it. So as I said, we're just gonna unwind right now, and I have to admit, I loved it. I absolutely adored this film.
Yeah, I wasn't too sold.
Bullshit.
Yeah. No, it was fantastic. It's probably, for my mind, the best Spider-Man film that has been released.
Now this is something because you and I worked together when the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans were out, and you were obsessed with the first one when it came out. I remember you and I were both ushers and you used to run to, especially the ending of the film, so you could catch that fabulous montage of him swinging through New York City.
So cool.
And because we had free tickets basically whenever we won them, I think you saw this film like a ridiculous amount of times as well, didn't you?
Saw it a few times, yeah. But
so you're saying you enjoyed it better than that?
I think so, yeah. That first film, like the swing through the city and stuff, we'd never seen that in a film before. And in all honesty, it still holds up really well. That was one of the things I thought could have been done better in this film, actually. One of the few things. But, this film just had everything else going for it. And I'm huge. I love Tobey Maguire. I love Sam Raimi. And I love those films, or the first two films in particular. But this one, it was a Spider-Man movie. And something that really struck me, and this isn't going to spoilers here because it takes place at a high school, but the high school, it was a good indication of the quality of the film. The high school looked like I've never been to New York, but it looked like what I imagine an actual New York high school to be like, whereas in the other ones it kind of seems like it's still just like a California kind of film set. This one had like a dirty New Yorkness that we've kind of pilfered from other films, and that authenticity is there throughout the entire film.
As I said from the top, I love this film. I loved Tobey Maguire. I love the direction this film took. It's like a drama.
Tom Holland?
Yeah. What did I say?
Tobey Maguire.
Oh shit! I love Tom Holland. Tom Holland is the perfect Spider-Man. Not only
he was great.
does he look 15 and he's a 22-year-old man, but just the way he was able to, like, I remember myself when I was 15. And you think about the situations that he were put in, and you're going to make mistakes all the time.
Yeah.
And this is what was so good about this movie, is that they let Spider-Man make these mistakes. He wasn't perfect, and he still isn't perfect. So we're going to see him grow and mature as this character and as this superhero. Yeah,
they've really set up something strong here. But it's funny you said that thing about the how he looks 15, because an ex-student of mine put on Facebook, Why do they cast someone so old to play someone so young? He doesn't look 15. And I'm thinking, like, maybe once you get to 30, everyone looks like 15 once they're around that age. Yeah. So,
and the great thing is that the director has done such a great job of having this teen dramedy set in a superhero film as well. Like,
yes,
you're watching two different films. Like, you're watching the coming of age of Spider-Man, but you're also watching this fantastic teeny 80s film that we used to see John Hughes produce so well in this film as well. And they've been able to mix the two with such precision that it just works on all levels, where they tried to do it with the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man films, and it definitely didn't work as well as it did here.
No, Andrew Garfield, we talked about at the time, he was too cool. Like, he's too cool of a dude to be. I think he's a great actor. Yeah. And it was the writing as well. The writing was just made him seem really cool. But he was like the nerdy kid. But I also felt in that sort of high school arena, they didn't labor it too much. Like, sometimes when you watch the old Raimi ones, it's painful to watch because it's like, this guy just has a shit. Like, being Spider-Man sucks.
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, I never really got that impression. Even when it was at the hardest, the times when the social things were the hardest, you kind of understood, and I never thought being Spider-Man sucked, which was good.
Yeah.
So it looks like,
this film is going to be a hit, and we'll talk about it more in our spoiler-free discussion.
Yeah, exactly right.
But there's a reason why this film is called Spider-Man Homecoming, is because you'll be coming all the way home after you watch it. It's that good.
That make it difficult to drive.
I was swerving a lot on the way home, to be honest.
Oh my god!
And then I turned the wheel.
Just thinking about all the different things. Michael Keaton.
All right, let's kick into movie news, shall we? On that note,
ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story.
All right, into the movie news for the week, and we haven't spoken about a trailer for a while because summertime's hit and we're getting all the movies that we're expecting to see now. But there is one that is coming out later this year, and it's a one we're kind of semi-excited for, and that's Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I was pretty psyched for a Jumanji sequel because there's a whole sort of world there that they can really play with, but I'm not sure about the setup they've got here. I like the idea when the images of the characters first came out, and you had like The Rock, this big guy, and you had what's his face?
Kevin
You had
Hart.
Jack Black. Kevin Hart is like, and everyone was kind of playing these stereotypes,
Yeah.
and they got called out on it, and they're like, no. Once you see the trailer, once you know the story, it'll make sense. You'll understand. I'm like, well, I don't think the setup that they've got now kind of fixes that.
Yeah. No, as I said, for me, it looks a bit lackluster. We've seen it all before type thing. I'm not that excited about it, to be honest. So it's one of those things where we'll just wait and see once the reviews come out if it's going to be any good or not.
Did you ever see the old Jumanji cartoon?
No.
That it was a great
Didn't know
early
one
2000s
existed.
cartoon. Yeah. And the thing was about I can't remember the setup, but it was the two kids from the first movie, and they would go into the game at the start of every episode and like live in the game with Robin Williams' character.
Oh, okay.
And so you saw and the way that it was set up with that was the Jumanji world was this like massive, like the whole thing was the jungle, and there were all these like deep dark secrets within this world. Whereas this film, they're like driving around in cars, and there are cities of people, and I don't know, it really jars with me as what I thought the world of Jumanji would be like. So look, that could just be on me. When we see the film, it might all make sense.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it doesn't buy into what I thought the Jumanji world would be.
Well, apparently we're going to see a lot more of where Robin Williams' character lived for so long while he was in the game. So we're going to be seeing more of that, apparently. But, I don't know if they're going to try too hard throwing in Kevin Hart, Jack Black, and The Rock. I think there's just going to be trying to do a Joker minute type scenario that we kind of saw with Guardians. And, I think there's only room for one funny man in there, and you throw in maybe three, all trying to get their own pieces.
And they're all great, all fantastic.
Yeah, so whether it works or not, who knows? It's still way too early. It's only a teaser trailer after all, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, okay.
All right, well, speaking of Spider-Man, we've got told this week that Spider-Man has a five-film MCU story arc, which starts with, obviously, Spider-Man Homecoming. Then we've got the two Avengers films, and then we've got Spider-Man Homecoming 2, and then I think there's going to be a third one as well. Now, the really cool part about this is that Spider-Man Homecoming 2, which isn't the official title, it's just the working title at the moment, is going to take place minutes after the proceedings of Avengers 4. So, yeah, this is very cool. So, he's got a massive part in this story to come.
Yeah, that's very exciting. It's great that one of the great things about the Spider-Man Homecoming film was how enmeshed in the MCU it was. And they've clearly thought, how can we make it seem like Spider-Man has been there forever? And I think they did a really good job with that.
Yeah.
So they've laid the groundwork to it takes place minutes after. I think it's going to make a lot of sense, whatever they do with it.
Yeah, and the Spider-Man Homecoming sequel is the start of Phase 4. So that is really cool. The fact that he's not just here to make an appearance and, to get the Sony ball rolling. He's actually here to play a massive part in this phase of the Marvel Universe that we've been seeing.
Which is exciting.
Yeah.
Which makes all the other news about the Venom movie even more strange.
Yeah, it does. And confusing.
Yeah, but anyway. This is really cool.
The business side of things is that Sony gets to keep all the money that's being made at the moment from the films. And basically, Sony has just lent him to Marvel just so he could be part of the film franchise. I think Marvel are keeping the merchandise rights, which is still going to be a lot of money.
Yeah.
But, I reckon this film's going to be a monster hit, $700-800 million worldwide hit.
Yeah.
But that's all Sony's pocket. So, it's good on them for actually working this out and Marvel taking the hit and Sony being man enough to actually admit that they've fucked it up and, given the rights to Marvel. So fingers crossed, if this is a massive success, maybe we might see the same thing with the Fantastic Four.
Oh my God, that would make me so happy.
and then you might have Fantastic Four and Spider-Man as well.
Can me seeing the Baxter bit like that would be so good. The Fantastic Four themselves could add so much to what the current MCU has with their because they really buy into the whole cosmic notion of the MCU.
Absolutely,
So,
it fits in perfectly.
yeah. So look, if you listen, I know the Sony bigwig listen to this show, so just take your hands off the wheel, guys. Just let them fly.
Yeah, I think so. And there was a storyline in the Avengers, Age of Ultron, that it was kind of weird in my opinion. I didn't think it was necessarily, but it sounds like it might be getting cut out completely. And that's the romance between the Black Widow and the Hulk.
Yeah, I read this, and now you have to, because I haven't actually read this story. I'm just reading the show notes here, but it says it sounds like when the two finally reunite in Avengers: Infinity War, it won't be a happy experience.
Correct.
Is that all they said? Because that just might mean they fight. Doesn't mean they're going to break up.
Well, he's been gone for 3 years, and he didn't
Yeah.
say anything. He left on the Quinjet and basically left her to be. So, not that we both know women really well, but if we were to leave our wives for 3 years,
For 3
and come
years,
back,
yeah.
I severely doubt they're going to be impressed.
Look, yeah, I can understand that. I know a lot of people were down on that relationship, but I kind of liked it.
For what reason?
I don't know. It's not something that had really been done before in the comics, and I know you shouldn't like something just for that reason. But I thought it added something else to both of their characters. That gave both of their characters a reason to, like, Natasha was always on about, she's got red in her ledger. She doesn't. I think she doesn't think much of herself, and the relationship with Hawkeye kind of helped with that. But I think this would have been something like that could have brought her back into the world of stepping out of the shadows into the light. And for Banner, I mean, having a real human connection with somebody else is a big development for that character. I thought it was kind of cool, like both of them stepping away from being monsters to being in a caring relationship.
Well, I was always really worried about her, to be honest. I'd probably think a bit too much about it, but I was always worried that if she was intimate with Bruce Banner, and
You were worried for her.
and then he got angry for some reason during their lovemaking, he would tear her apart, literally.
Well, gosh, maybe it happens with extreme pleasure as well. Maybe it's not just pain.
Because I'm pretty sure his wang grows with his...
Proportionally.
Exactly, you would think
No,
so.
it doesn't. That's why he wears the shorts. Because everyone would just fall over laughing if you had this big giant Hulk. And I think Mark Ruffalo is quite well endowed, if the websites are to be believed, but not well enough for the massive Hulk.
Okay, fair enough.
So there you go, a little known fact about the Hulk's physiology.
Yeah, so well, there you go. As I said, whether they're going to play down or play up this romantic element, as in they're going to have a breakup and get back together, who knows? It could be another subplot of the film. But
They have to touch on it at least.
At the moment, she's not impressed.
Okay, and fair enough.
Yes. And one character that's been missing out of this whole storyline for a couple films now, and from memory, I think the last time we saw him was in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and that's Nick Fury. Did he come up in Avengers: Age of Ultron?
I think it was in... Oh, I'm not sure.
I can't remember.
Gosh,
Now. I can't
that
remember.
sounds bad.
Was he at Hawkeye's house that time when they went back?
Yeah, yeah, of course he was. Yeah,
Alright,
yeah.
Well, we haven't seen him then since Age of Ultron. But apparently he's got a big part in Captain Marvel, the new film coming up, I think late next year.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, so I don't know. Are we kind of seeing now like a pattern where they're introducing all these new characters and there's someone there from the original crew to babysit them through their film? Do we really need that now?
Well, I kind of think you. I mean, that's how you connect it with the other characters,
Yeah, I suppose. But
with the other stories.
for people who don't know who Captain Marvel is, her real name is Carol Danvers. She's an Air Force officer who got caught up in an explosion, and she survived the burst, but she resurfaces with superhuman abilities. So she's
As they do.
basically Marvel's Superman.
Yeah, but more like, I know it sounds dumb because Superman's from Krypton, but more spacey than Superman. She spends a lot of time in space doing space stuff.
And that's how she fits into the cosmic phase that we're going to be going into in the MCU. All right, well, over at DC, things are really starting to heat up now that War of the Planet of the Apes is wrapping up. And Matt Reeves, who we keep talking about, is on the press tour. And as I said, the more he says, the more I'm really getting excited for this Batman film. And he's basically said that they're forecasting a an arc, a big story arc, maybe over 3 films. But he said the most important thing is to get a good single movie with a solid story, and then they can build on potential sequels or trilogy from there. He says that he's got an idea for an arc, but it's really important just to get the start right. You want to get it right with the first one, and then you can let something begin after that.
And if they're going down the Arkham route, which we talked about in the last show, I think
it's perfect.
It's the perfect jump off because you get introduced briefly to all these characters, and then the world's your oyster. You don't have to do like these crazy backstories or anything like that. Just get straight to the action.
Yeah, I agree. So he said that he's going to be starting work as soon as the press commitments are done for this film, which is in a couple of weeks. So hopefully we might see when the film's released, maybe 2 years. That puts us in 2019 or possibly 20, depending on how much work he has to do to the script. But I think they've definitely got the right man for the job on this one.
I think so. I'm still believing your bets.
Well, there's a really weird story floating around, and there's a film possibly going to be made regarding the life of Willy Wonka, a young Willy Wonka. So before everything that we've seen so far, before Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and there's an A-lister who wants to put his hand up for it, and that is Ryan Gosling.
Which is, I guess, if they're going to do that, they're going to Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka, not Johnny Depp.
Yeah, well, looks-wise, you would think
Yeah.
that they're the same, and, you know, it could pass. And then, I guess, with what he did with La La Land, if they want to turn it into a musical like the first one was, you know, he's got some singing chops as well.
Can I just say, though, he's not really that young.
No, I think
to
he's
play
like
a young
36.
Willy Wonka.
I think he's 36 years old, but he still looks young.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not, like, Goz, you know I love you, but I'm not really buying it. I mean, even in La La Land, which I love, there was still, even between the two of them, a bit of a difference. So they'd have to really young him up.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that, I guess.
I guess it depends on what period of his life and... Look, I don't know. It seems strange. It's very early days, so maybe he'll play Willy Wonka's dad. I could see that.
Yeah, that's true. But either way, there's talks of a prequel, and Ryan Gosling could be playing Willy Wonka.
You think it needs a prequel?
No, definitely not. I think it just needs to be left alone.
Yeah, let it die.
Yeah, surely there's some other scripts that can be made before this one.
Yeah.
I think what so far with the box office numbers is that people, I think, are sick of trilogies. They're sick of these franchise films that just hang on longer than they should, i.e. Pirates of the Caribbean and Transformers. So maybe just give us something original for a change. Take a risk.
Exactly right. Or at least reboot something good.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. Yeah.
All right, well, one film that was rebooted, and I guess it wasn't. I don't think it it was a continuation of a story, and that was Creed, a film that came out 2 years ago. It was actually really, really good, and there was talks of a sequel basically as soon as the film's opening weekend was a hit. So there hasn't been a lot of talk on this front, but there's something dropped this week. Sylvester Stallone put a Instagram picture up of Michael B. Jordan going against Dolph Lundgren in a ring with Sylvester Stallone's Rocky in the background.
That's crazy.
Now, if you don't know the story of Rocky, Michael B. Jordan's Creed is the son to Carl Weathers, who was killed in the boxing ring by Drago, who was played by Dolph Lundgren. So, for me, it's a bit of a stretch to see the young Michael B. Jordan fight against a 60-year-old Dolph Lundgren in a Creed sequel. But maybe if Drago had a son, he could fight Creed. So that could work. But if he was to get revenge for his dad by fighting an old Drago, I don't know if that will necessarily work.
Well, Dolph still looks really good.
Yeah, he does look really good, but it's a bit stupid where they did everything so right in Creed. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but to go backwards, it's kind of like what they did with Rocky when Rocky 6, I think it was, when they said the current heavyweight champion would love to go back and fight Rocky, so Rocky trains up again and goes the distance with him. The film was alright, but in reality, it's not going to happen. So, I would hate for all the good work that they did in Creed to be kind of slapped in the face with a stupid idea like this.
But yeah, it's teasing it. I think you're right. His son, or maybe someone he himself is training up, or something like that. That could be interesting.
Yeah.
Like the two proteges kind of going head to head.
Correct, yeah, with maybe Drago being in the son's corner, and then
Yeah.
obviously you've got Rocky in Creed's corner. That could probably work. That would be quite good. All right, well, that wraps up the movie news. So now we're going to get into a spoiler-filled discussion of Spider-Man Homecoming. As usual, if you haven't seen it, go out and see it. Hit pause. We'll wait for you. And listen when you come back. All right. 3, 2, 1. Now we're going to talk about spoilers. All right.
Yes.
So, as we said off the top of the show, we both love this film. So far, for me, it's the best film of the year, in my opinion. We've still got a lot of good ones to come out. But nothing beats the excitement that you get when you actually leave a film that you really love. Like, I'm actually busting to watch this film again. I'm thinking how I can go watch, maybe this week or this weekend. So
you're like, can I lock my kid in the room for a couple of hours? Would they be all right with that?
Yeah, I agree. So the things that I loved, as I said, the cast was so good.
Everyone was good in this cast. That was blew me away. Even the bit parts, the minor characters, the secondary characters, everyone was good.
Yeah. The way the film opens, I love that. I love the fact that we saw why Michael Keaton's character held such a grudge against Tony Stark. He was part of the crew, and it was so cool seeing that scene from the leftovers and the aftermath of the fight in New York from the Avengers film, and seeing the big, what would you call it, dragon type monster that Hulk smashed lying
the worm.
Correct, yeah. It's still lying there, and this construction crew is taking it apart when Tony Stark's company comes in and says, no, we'll be taking care of all of this.
Yeah.
And that's why he seeks his revenge. And when you think about it, it does make sense for the government and Tony Stark to take all this alien technology away rather than just let some, contractors do it. But it was great going back and seeing this from 8 years ago.
It was cool.
And it's crazy seeing it because, as I said, it was so cool seeing, you're like, I remember that part. And seeing that, and then why he's got such a hard-on for getting rid of the Avengers and Tony Stark, and obviously profiting from this as well.
And let's just talk about Michael Keaton for a second, because he was two things. Number one, thank God they did not kill him at the end of this movie.
Yes, I was thinking the exact same thing.
That scene at the end where he's like, it said the backpack was going to explode. I'm like, they're just going to... I was actually sitting in the cinema thinking, that's going to be a really cheap way to get rid of him. But then they didn't, and it set up that first bit in the credits when he says, if I knew who he was, you think he'd still be alive.
Yeah.
God, yeah, he was already an awesome villain, and him sticking around just makes him even more amazing. Yeah. And that scene in the car, can we just talk about that for a second?
Yes. Well, I was going to start from the start and work our way through.
Okay, let's do that. Let's work our way through.
Yeah. So then after that, we get to see Peter Parker's side of things from the scene from Civil War. He's making a little home movie while Happy Hogan picks him up and takes him to Berlin. And then we see him suit up for the first time. And then we see his point of view from the battle, which was so damn cool. It was just a great opening. And then what I really loved about it is that basically Peter Parker goes back to his normal life, and he's just so bored in his normal life because Tony Stark says, we'll call you, don't call us. And he doesn't get a phone call. And to go through something like that and then have nothing would kill you. Exactly. It definitely blue ball you. So
the thing that was awesome because it set up his character so well as well. It wasn't just it was great to have the rehash of everything that Spider-Man had been involved with, but it also the way that he was shooting this home movie told you he was this kind of goofy, nerding out kind of guy who was just super excited to be there, really friendly and nice. It really just set up his character so well. They didn't go into how did you get your powers or great power comes great responsibility.
Yes.
Uncle Ben wasn't even mentioned once in this film. And it wasn't necessary. It was, I'm sure they'll touch on it at some point, but it was, unneeded because he just in himself he had this desire to do good. And
I think it was the first time that the line wasn't used in a Spider-Man film. I don't remember hearing it. Do you remember
No, not at all. I'm pretty sure it was because that message. I think it was a good move. It's too central to the old Raimi films.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And another part as well is that they didn't waste time really setting up the birth of the Vulture as well. Like we meet the Vulture 8 years after what we just spoke
It's
about,
already
and
set up.
he's already the Vulture. So there's so much time that they didn't waste with this film, and the film was 2 hours. But it didn't feel like 2 hours at all because they didn't have to go through all this bullshit that we've already seen before. And it was good that the Vulture was just already the Vulture. We've seen him in full action the first time we see him.
And can I say how genius it is making the Vulture's chick scavenging like wrecked parts?
Yeah.
Like that's so cool. And I love his whole gimmick, like the jacket, like the use of the jacket and the fact that he was kind of like this might as well have been like a car mechanic, like a street mechanic kind of guy. It was just such a cool take on the character who was, originally this basically, Green Goblin to like a billionaire inventor kind of guy. This is the Vulture I want to see going forward. He was just such a good take on the character.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about your impressions because obviously you're a bigger Spider-Man fan than I am. And, they've had all the, like, visually, apart from the fur around his jacket, he looks completely different to the Vulture I know from the comic books. So were you happy with this modern?
Oh yeah, it was. In all sincerity, and I love the original character, but it would never translate to film.
Yeah,
it's basically a geriatric in a green leotard. Like that, no one's going to want to watch that. But this had power and it had presence, and the scenes. When he swooped down and got Parker for the first time, like he didn't speak or do anything else. He was like an animal that had come out of the sky just to devour Spider-Man. And it was just the way it was shot just made his menace so real. And then of course the scenes when he wasn't wearing the mask, Michael Keaton just made the menace so real. Yeah. So they just did such a good job with him.
And it was very cheeky because a while ago he said that he was only signed up for one film. So clearly not. Hopefully we might be building towards the Sinister Six. I'm not sure, but
man, I was just thinking when they had Scorpion on the ship and they had Shocker there as well. I'm like, whew.
Yeah. So how that ties in and how these characters are going to be in Sony's Marvel universe, I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. But they've done a great work of setting it up, and it wasn't as hard in your face as what it was trying to do in. Amazing Spider-Man 2, where the character walks past like the Vulture wings, the Rhino thing. That was really like, here you go, we're doing Sinister Six, but this one's a lot more subtle.
That was basically Wonder Woman clicking through videos on a laptop. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's definitely what it was.
Yeah, but you know what that means? We could see Mysterio. We could see, Sandman again. They could do a lot with. They could do a lot with the Rhino as well.
We know already that we're getting Kraven as well, so that he's good to go. And I think Mysterio was the other one as well. So we're definitely going to see cool. This.
Like he's one of those the one villain. He's like the Bane of Batman has Bane who broke his back. Kraven is basically that for Spider-Man because Kraven defeated him and buried him in his own grave.
Yeah.
So to do something like that, it could be really. Cool. The scene. Okay, we're working our way through the film, but I just want to say at the end when he's like underneath all that rubble, you could really feel the weight of it, and it really felt like this is the first time when being Spider-Man has become real for him. Yeah. I thought they just did such a good job of. Like, I really felt for him at that point. I'm like, wow, this film just got suddenly very, very dark. And they earned that moment, and it worked so well for the development of him as a character. And it's that's the lesson of great responsibility, great power kind of thing that they can take into other films, but they didn't need to beat you over the head with it.
Yeah. And what's so good about he was really vulnerable at that part as well.
Yes.
He was crying, he was calling for help, and he goes, and then as you said, he took responsibility on himself. He goes, if it's going to happen, I'm going to have to do it. So
I wonder
he willed himself to do it.
It might be a callback as well to there was one point early in the comics where Spider-Man gets buried. I think it's Dr. Octopus's like underwater lair. He gets buried in like a ton of rubble. And there's like this famous image of him kind of lifting that. It's often harked back to this is, Spider-Man showing how powerful he is.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's a throwback to that. But either way, it was a great moment.
Yeah. And then obviously we're going through the film. There was a fantastic scene where at the end of the Civil War activities, Tony Stark says, don't do anything I would do or don't do anything I wouldn't do. It just be your local a friendly Spider-Man, and that's what he did. And then
Yes.
he was just after school. He's counting down the days for when counting down the minutes before he can go out and be Spider-Man and do stuff. And then he gets out there and he helps a woman cross the road. He
Yeah.
stops someone from stealing a bike, and he's just waiting for something big to happen. And as I said, like, it's stupid mistakes you're going to make as a teenager because you just want more and you just want everything now rather than letting it wait and letting your opportunity come in life. But he just wants everything now, and he puts his life on hold and sits by his phone just in case Happy or Tony Stark call him for another mission. And as I said, you can just put yourself in his shoes, and you don't want to wait. You don't want to do your training, especially when you've been shown something like that and been a part of something like that. You just want to continue doing that stuff. And that's why I thought this film was so great in doing so, is that he was just a teenage boy, and he never really, the director never really forgot you or made you forget that. He didn't put himself in big situations where the other previous films did. He always stayed in Queens, where the other ones, he was always swooping around New York City. And actually, speaking of swooping in New York City, the big money shot from the trailer with Iron Man and Spider-Man wasn't actually in the film.
I reckon that was just like a composite shot. They've really put a lot into their marketing to tell us that Iron Man was in this movie as well. So I think it was just part of that.
Yeah, it was. And I personally think all the shots that were in the trailer with Iron Man were basically, that was it for him in the film. Except for the
which
scene
is good.
where he's in India, I think it was.
Yeah, in India, and at the very end as well.
Yeah.
But I thought he was used perfectly, like just enough to connect him and to validate his purpose. But it wasn't the Iron Man and Spider-Man movie. It was a Spider-Man movie, starring Iron Man.
Absolutely, and that's what was so good about it. He let Spider-Man be Spider-Man. And then the only thing I was disappointed with is that, we did, and we knew already that we did see all the big three set pieces in the trailers. The trailers did not have to show the third act at all. They could have left the third act completely out of the trailers, and it would have been a hell of a lot better because we didn't really see it. So, that's probably the only negative I've got to say about this film.
Yeah, I agree. There were some janky bits that kind of took me out when he was doing his like flipping and swinging action, but it's minor points. Everything else was top. And the thing that drives this film are not the awesome action sequences and the set pieces, which are really cool. I love the one thing that I thought on the ferry that splits in half. I just assumed that was the Vulture who had done that in order to let him get away. But the fact that it was Peter who did that by not understanding what this weapon was, and even the Vulture says to him at that point, you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool. The fact that he made that happen,
and that's what I love. I said, the director and the storytellers, they let him make these mistakes because you're not going to listen to everyone in your life when you're that age, and you just want to go and do things. And as you said, the fact that he made this mistake and he caused this to happen, was really, really cool. And I love the fact that Tony Stark took the suit off him. And I love the line, he goes, if you need the suit... what was the line?
If you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't be wearing it.
You shouldn't be wearing it. That was such a good line. And that goes back to the throwback to what you said later in the film, when, he didn't need that suit to get out of the rubble. He could just be the Spider-Man and do it.
Yep. And that was cool.
Yeah. I don't think they relied too much on the suit as well. There was a lot of things that, as a Spider-Man fan, did he have all those, 500 different web combinations and everything else?
No. Like they've done different things with him throughout the years, but for the most part, and it's all his tech in the comics that he's kind of created.
Yeah.
And he's got like different web elements, but nothing like a suit that talks to him or anything like that. When they did the first Civil War arc in the comics, he joined Iron Man's side, and Iron Man made him a suit then that had all the bells and whistles, but eventually he goes over to Cap's side and gets rid of the suit. So they flirted with it in the past. I was just happy because it meant Jennifer Connelly was a voice. And I could just
that was very cool. Yes.
And I wonder if that's because Vision, like her husband, is Paul Bettany.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's cool. And I hope I would love for them to have like a tete-a-tete at some point in the future.
Yeah, that would be very cool. So then the love interest of the film, I think her name is Zedania or Zedana in real life. I'm not sure. But
was that MJ?
No, that was the main.
That was Liz.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so obviously Peter Parker falls in love with this girl. She has feelings for him as well, and they set up to go to homecoming dance together.
And she was really good, can I just say?
Yeah, she was.
Like, I mean, she wasn't in it that much, but the scene that sold me on her was when they were going to the homecoming in the car, and the way that she just played it off, like she was so natural. Yeah, she just did a really good job.
But then we get to the big twist of the film, and spoilers, obviously, is that Peter Parker goes to the door of this girl, and the door opens, and it's the fucking Vulture. Michael Keaton opens the door.
I did not pick that. I'm like, something bad's going to happen here, but I did not pick that.
Well,
and I was right. It's Laura Harrier is the girl who plays Liz.
Oh,
Zendaya is one who plays Liz. But yeah, go on.
And then as soon as Michael Keaton opens the door, I'm like, oh fuck, how did the Vulture find him? They're like, hang on,
he knows who he is.
And then the way it plays out is that he's the dad of the girl that he's taking to the prom. And Peter Parker already knows who he is because he's seen him on the ferry before it obviously split in half. And the way that scene played out was so cool because Peter just could not focus on anything else other than, oh shit, I'm taking out the Vulture's daughter. And then he offers to drive them to the prom. And then that's where the Vulture puts two and two together because he recognizes Spider-Man's voice. And he realizes that he was missing when they went on the field trip to Washington. And obviously the two know each other, who they are, their alter egos. And obviously they can't say anything in front of the daughter. And then Michael Keaton says, oh, honey, do you mind giving me a moment with Peter? And then this fantastic scene plays out between Michael Keaton and Tom Holland that it was really mesmerizing to watch, to be honest.
People are going to be talking about this scene for a long time. I think it's going to be one of those, remember that scene in the car in Homecoming? That was,
I reckon it was as good as when Heath Ledger met Christian Bale in The Dark Knight, when the two were sitting in the interrogation room.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And look, Tom Holland does a great job, but it's Michael Keaton's menace that sells this.
Yeah. It's so cool to see him go from Batman to a menacing villain like this. It's so awesome. And that scene alone is worth the price of admission, and it's not even an action scene. It just takes place in a car, which is so cool.
You dig on what the Vulture is doing. Like, you don't really agree with what he's doing, but he like the whole film, it's like, I'm doing this for my kid and my wife. And, when he says it, and in that car scene, is like, you should show her a good time, not too much of a good time, and if you stuff this up, I'll kill you and everyone you love. Like, it's the break, the fine line between father and villain is just, it's perfect.
I loved it. I thought it was a great scene, and those two played really well off each other. And then obviously Peter Parker skips the homecoming dance and suits up, and then obviously takes on the Vulture for the final scene of the third act of the film.
Which the fight scene on you saw a flash of it in the trailers, but it was tense. They really played, I thought, in this film really well with distance to the ground. Yeah. Like the scene I didn't realize. Also, I learned you can actually go up in the Washington Needle.
Oh, cool!
I didn't realize you could do that. I thought it was just like a big stone obelisk, but apparently it has a view in it. Anyway, like that scene, the scene when he was looking down there, I'm like, I'm glad I didn't see this in 3D because I'm probably throwing up right now. And then they did it again when he, went up on the plane, like flying over the top of everything. I thought they played to that tension really, really well. Yeah,
and it was good to see a third act. That it was I know it was pretty dramatic and it was pretty big, but it was pretty simple in the same time. It was just basically, Vulture's trying to steal all of Tony Stark's shit. Spider-Man has to try and bring the plane ground without it crashing into everything and kind of steer it away from everything. And he just basically captures the Vulture and leaves him for the cops and S.H.I.E.L.D. to come and get.
Yeah, classic Spidey style.
Exactly. And as you said, they didn't kill him off, which I was so thankful for because, as you said, I would have hated him just to be blown up and as simple as that, and then life goes on. But it wasn't.
That last scene of them two together, lying when they're back on the sand after Spider-Man's just pulled them out of the fire, even just that scene is something that it just builds so much between their characters. Yeah. And it makes sense that later on, because he says to him earlier on, it's like, you saved my daughter's life, and that's, means that's why I'm not killing you right now.
Yeah.
And then later on, when, in the post-credit scene, when he says, if I knew who he was, he'd be dead already. Like, it gives a lot of depth to that character.
I was just about to say that, yeah.
Yeah. So, kudos to them.
Even though he is the villain of this film, he's not like a dead set killer. As you said, he just basically plays a vulture and he just salvaged these yards to make money. That's all he was in. He wasn't after world domination. He wasn't world to taking people hostage. He just wanted to make money. He just wanted to provide for his family. And whether that goes anywhere, that he does know the identity later on and he tries to use it once he's out, I'm not sure. But we'll soon find out, I guess.
The shtick of the vulture played into the character of the person rather than what they seem to do a lot of the other times, which is, all right, we've got this gimmick character from comic books. Let's make everything about the character feed into that gimmick.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think it was genius, to be honest.
As I said, he didn't want to take over the world. He didn't want this. He didn't want that. He just wanted to provide for his family. That's all he wanted.
And stick one up, that's the Tony Starks of the world a little
absolutely,
bit.
Yeah. He just wanted his revenge on Tony Stark. He didn't necessarily want to kill everyone in the process.
I liked it when the Shocker died, though. Oh, the first Shocker.
Yeah.
I thought that was unexpected for me.
Yeah, especially when he thought it was a different gun.
Yeah, that was good. Actually, the humor in this film was really good. The time where his friend, I can't remember his friend's name, is it because I went to the film by myself, but behind me there were a couple of guys, and the scene when he said he wants to be the chair guy.
Yeah,
I want to be the guy in the chair, and then the teacher walks in. He's like, "What are you doing in here?" And she's like, "I'm looking at porn." We just that just erupted in laughter.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I was the only one who laughed at that line in the film.
Oh man,
I was sitting there by myself as well. But yeah, it was perfect because he couldn't really say anything else. Yeah. He goes, the best way out of this is to say I'm just looking at porn. That's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, he was great. Like I said, all the secondary characters, and that girl Zendaya or whatever her name is, who played MJ, was so good at like this kind of sarcastic, ironic, but likable character.
Yeah,
I'm really keen to see what they do with her in the next films.
Yeah, especially like obviously, and actually before we go on about the ending, I'll tell you one thing that I loved as well. I loved the what would you say? I loved how all the what would you say? Ethnic groups were shown in this film. Like there was a lot of Asians, there were a lot of African Americans, there was a lot of white kids. It wasn't just a whitewash high school that we usually get to see. It was all these different ethnic groups.
It sounds dumb, but it's true.
So it's a massive shift in where we're going, and obviously MJ is going to play the lead. Hopefully, it may be in the next Avengers film. Maybe there's more romance there. Definitely in the next Spider-Man film. And to have Spider-Man having an African American girlfriend is really cool in itself. So really cool to see.
And I kind of like because the original Mary Jane, she was a cool person. Like everybody wanted to be Mary Jane. She was hip. She was fun. She was at parties and like that kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And that's the MJ that I know and are kind of familiar with. So it was kind of a bit to get used to this, but I thought about it, and like, this is what cool is these days. Like this kind of slick operator, interesting. Like she's reading books and doing that kind of stuff. She knows her history about different things. Like, I don't want to go on the Washington Monument built by slaves.
Yeah, that's right.
Even the teacher wasn't aware. Like, that was cool. She was a cool character, and it made me happy with how they mixed it up a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've seen that cliched MJ so many times in so many films. So it's going to be cool to, as you said, see something completely different with this new MJ. Yeah, and
Tom Holland just does that awkward relationship thing very well. So it's going to be great.
Well, my favorite part, or my biggest laugh of the film, was the last shot, actually, is that Peter Parker comes home. He sees that Tony Stark has left the suit back on his bed, and he's calling out, Aunt May, and there's silence. So then he puts the suit back on, and the camera pans around, and there's Aunt May standing in the doorway, seeing Peter Parker just put on the Spider-Man suit, and she says, "What the?" And then it just cuts to the Ramones song, and I was just like, "Yes, it was fucking awesome."
Marissa Tomei was great in this movie, as she didn't have a lot of screen time, but you really bought that this couple had a relationship. Like, she was a cool aunt.
And I love the subtle hints that, like, Tony Stark said something like, "Oh, I hope you're in some, I hope you're in something nice and sleek and comfortable," or something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
And then the guy, the deli, always asked about how's your auntie doing? And then the guy at the Thai restaurant gives her a free dessert. And then there was one more that someone paid reference to his auntie. I just love the fact that, it's a common, well-known thing that Peter Parker has a hot auntie.
Yeah.
I thought that was really funny as well.
Yeah, again, it's a very different Aunt May than what we're used to,
Yeah.
but it worked so well.
Yeah.
And you know what? This film couldn't have existed unless Amazing Spider-Man, not so much, but unless the Raimi films had come before it. Because to change Mary Jane in this way, to change Aunt May in this way, fans would have been up in arms because they're finally getting a Spider-Man film and they're going so far from the source material. So thank God that those films exist, because it allows filmmakers space to really maybe not translate the material one for one, but to adapt it in a way that's true to the original, but also updated.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, if it wasn't for those films, we would have had to go do all the backstory again.
Exactly right.
Where we didn't have to this time, and we were able to see, a lot more. And I love the fact that they kept him really ground level as well, kind of like what the Defenders are. It's just ground level Spider-Man that we're seeing now. He hasn't moved into New York City. He's not doing these big things. He's just doing this ground level stuff. And to see him running around and jumping off roofs in suburbia and seeing
when he's running through the golf course.
Exactly. Just seeing him in these awkward situations that aren't as big scale as what we're used to seeing with Captain America and Thor. As I said, they just really grounded him, and he really is, a 15-year-old boy in his sophomore year of high school. And I think they said that the trilogy is going to take place, I think next year the next one he's a freshman, and then the third one he's a senior. So we're going to see him grow throughout high school, and then eventually graduate. And then we'll probably see him graduate, as a hero as well, and start doing all these bigger things.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah. Well, as you can tell, we absolutely love this film, and I know, and you're the same. Can't wait to watch it again.
I think I'm going to try and convince the family to go Sunday.
Yeah. As I said, I was a bit disheartened when I watched Guardians 2. It wasn't as good as what I hoped it would be, but Marvel and Sony have knocked it out of the park with this one. So I hope Thor Ragnarok later in the year is just as good as this.
All right.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Not Another Movie Podcast. I am Sean Pierce.
And I am Sean Kelly.
And let your week be a good week until next week.